everyone, welcome to Kevin Teaches Music. I wish I could keep playing that beautiful and glorious piece, but I don't want to take up too much time in the introduction because what we are talking about in this video is right at the beginning of that movement of Moonlight Sonata. And the topic for today's lesson is the Neapolitan chord. Now, this is one of those chord types that everybody learns in their music theory class, well, assuming you get to a certain level of music theory. And most people I've talked to will sort of, barely kind of memorize it for the test. They'll do okay on the test, and then they promptly forget what it is, and they never, ever use it or, think about it again until their dying day. Now, that is one way to go about the rest of your life, but I will propose that a more fulfilling existence will include some rudimentary understanding of this beautiful, this glorious, and such a deep chord, such a powerful chord. So, it's one of my favorite chords, and it really does have a very strong effect, including in some of the world's most famous compositions. So, the Neapolitan chord, let's go over how it is constructed first, and then I'll show you where it is in that Moonlight Sonata segment so that you'll get the sound in your ear and you'll never forget how it sounds after that point because you'll be able to think of Moonlight Sonata. So, first things first, how is it constructed? Well, let's take a simple example in the key of C so that we can, don't have to think about too many crazy sharps and flats. Now, the Neapolitan chord typically is going to come up in the context of a minor key. Now, it can come up in a major key, don't get me wrong, but we're going to start with minor because that's the simplest one to explain. So we're in the key of C minor. And our key signature has three flats, B flat, E flat, and A flat. The Neapolitan chord is going to be a major triad whose root is the flattened second scale degree of the key center. So, C minor is the key center in this case. The second scale degree is D. The flattened second, or you can just colloquially call it flat 2 if you want, is D flat. Now the major triad with that as the root is of course D flat major. So sometimes these explanations sound more complicated than they are. I'm being very technical with my language, but basically it's a flat 2 major chord. All right. So you were in C minor. Your Neapolitan is going to be a D flat major. But here's one important thing about the way the chord is actually used in classical, or I should say Western art music. It's not played in root position. So you don't go C minor and then straight up to D flat. No. The way it's used is in first inversion. So that means that the third of the chord will be the bass. So the third of the chord, if we have D flat, F, and A flat, is that F. So that's actually going to be our bass note. And the other notes we're going to put up in the right hand, right? So here's what it sounds like in the context of C minor. So we've got the C minor. Maybe I go... So what I did there is I just worked the bass down from C to F just to get it into position, right? So now I'm on F minor. That's the Neapolitan. So what I did there is I worked the bass down to F. I was on an F minor chord here. Now F minor is F, A flat, and C. The chord we need is F, A flat, and D flat. So once I got myself to the F minor chord, I only needed to change the C to D flat. So I'll do that one more time. This is A flat, C, and F with an F in the bass. Now that's the Neapolitan. It's a very dark sound. Now, the reason why it's dark is because, first of all, it's in an inversion, which is a very unstable kind of... Pardon me. The inversion is very unstable. Secondly, it's dark because it's introduced another flat into our sort of orbit. So our orbit was 3 flats, B flat, E flat, and A flat. So we're kind of in this world. Now, when this creeps in, it's a little bit darker because we're heading in a flat direction. Flats are more minor and dark sounding, and then sharps are going to lift you up, right? Because flats resolve downwards and sharps resolve upwards. So if you change that D, that's the D, to the D flat, all of a sudden you feel you're sort of being sucked downwards. Well, I don't know what you feel. I shouldn't tell you what to feel, but that's what I feel. So anyway, the neat thing about the Neapolitan is the way that it is typically resolved from that point. So that's the setup. That's the way that the actual chord is constructed. Now let's hear how it usually functions in the song. So the way it will function is usually something like that. So so I got to the Neapolitan, which is F, A flat, and D flat. Now remember, the D flat is the weirdo note, right? That's the new flat. Usually my D flat is going to resolve through the C. Remember, I told you that flats want to resolve downwards. So the D flat is going to go through the C, and then it's going to go to the B natural. And then that B natural resolves back to C, typically on a chord of C minor. Now let's talk about that B natural real quick. The B natural is usually paired with a G chord or a G7. That B natural is another accidental, right? Because the key signature has B flat. But that B natural is a very, very, very common and very useful accidental in the key of C minor. It's the leading tone. Okay, so the B natural is the half step below the tonic being C. And so that is sort of the signal, the B natural is the signal that we're about to resolve back to C minor. That type of cadence where you have the B natural leading into the tonic C is called an authentic cadence, or a 5-1 if you will. Why is it called 5-1? You might think it was called 7-8, because of the way the B leads into C. If you're numbering that, it would be 7-8. But it's called 5-1 because of the bass motion. The bass goes 5-1. Right? G, C. So what this means is that the Neapolitan chord is effectively a predominant chord. So C minor is the tonic. The G7 that we were just talking about with the B natural is the dominant. So the Neapolitan is a predominant, meaning that it comes before the dominant. So it's kind of like the anti-penultimate chord of the phrase. So you've got the ultimate is the C minor, the tonic. The penultimate is the dominant, or G7. The anti-penultimate is going to be your Neapolitan. So it takes the place of other types of pre- or subdominants that usually go in that position. For example, we could have 4-5-1. So that would be F minor, G, and then C minor. That's the 4-5-1. We could do 2-5-1, so D, G, and then the C minor. There's all kinds of different cadences where you have a predominant, dominant, and a tonic. So the Neapolitan chord is a type of predominant, but the reason why it's so much juicier is because it has that extra flat that then resolves via 2 half steps to the leading tone of B natural. And there's a whole variety of different ways that you can, do the voice leading after that point. So, for example, some pieces will have the Neapolitan and it jumps straight to the leading tone without that passing tone, right? The passing tone makes it a little easier on the ear. Na, na, na. But you will hear it na, na, na on occasion. So that is how the Neapolitan chord is constructed, and that is how it is used. It is a major triad based on the flat 2 scale degree, but it's played in first inversion, and its function is as a predominant. It leads into the dominant chord, which then typically leads into the tonic. Now let's take a listen to how it sounds in Moonlight Sonata, and let's see if it fits those conventions. So this is C minor. The bass moves down a whole step there. We're not at the Neapolitan yet. We're getting close. That's the Neapolitan. And that's the dominant and the tonic. It's such a hard piece to stop playing because the way, but Beethoven wrote that piece, it's just so tonal. I mean, that sounds like a very lame way of describing it, because obviously it's sublime. But when I say it's so tonal, I mean that every chord has momentum and has voice leading, and every chord implies emotion or implies a channeling or funneling into the next chord. There's a certain amount of momentum, which is why it's hard to stop playing. So even though it's a slow piece, it has a lot of energy and motion. And that comes from the voice leading. So now that bass note right there, this is not the Neapolitan, by the way, I'm just sort of talking about the piece in general. That bass note there is now at odds with the chord in the right hand, which has not changed. So that's pulling you down. Now you do resolve to this major chord, but the ear can tell that that's not the tonic, right? That's sort of a major chord that's a little off to the side in terms of the orbit. That's setting up the Neapolitan. Now that Neapolitan, that's the darkest point of the phrase. It's the deepest bass, right? And it's got this flat. Of course, in this case, it's a natural, but you know what I mean. It's a lowered tone. So let's see. Na. We talked about how it should go na, na, na. Now, remember I said it could either go there by step or it could go immediately. It either go there by half step, na, 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 or it could just go na, na. So let's see which one it does. It actually goes straight there. So Beethoven, is writing this piece. I don't know. I'd have to Google it, but let's say maybe around 1800, 1805. I don't know exactly when, but early 19th century. And so this is he's firmly in the classical period, but he's presaging or prefacing things that are going to become hallmarks of the Romantic style. And one of the hallmarks of the Romantic style is some of these chords or chord progressions that were supposed to be used, with certain rules or certain things going in a certain order, are now taken out of those contexts and used in new contexts, more daring or adventurous contexts. So Beethoven is doing a little bit of this with Moonlight Sonata, and then in some of his other sonatas, he's going to really go to town with this kind of thing. So, all things considered, this move is actually fairly tame, but he doesn't lead us there with that middle step. He goes just straight there. Now, it can be hard to hear that because it's a 3-note arpeggiation in the right hand, so the important note is actually in the middle of that arpeggiation. It's that dun, na, na. It's actually in the middle of that, so it's not quite as obvious as in the examples where I was playing it, making it up for you. But if any of you are interested, that opening sequence of Moonlight Sonata is in C sharp minor, so 4 sharps. And the second scale degree is D sharp, which flattened would be D natural. And so the Neapolitan chord in that movement of Moonlight Sonata is a D major chord with the F sharp in the bass, right? And it's going to resolve to a G sharp dominant chord, which is G sharp, B sharp, the leading tone of C sharp minor, D sharp, and F sharp. And of course, Beethoven uses that embellished or decorated dominant chord with the four steps, right? That's the pure dominant. That's the cadential 1-6-4 for those of you who know. That's the suspended dominant, and then the true dominant again before going to the tonic. So that is the Neapolitan chord. So I hope that you enjoyed this lesson and you got the sound of it in your head and you have a good understanding of what it is. The best way to firm all of this up is go immediately, run, do not walk to your nearest piano and try to play some of these chords. So for example, give yourself a C minor. Here's the best way to do it. Give yourself a C minor. Then give yourself an F minor. So you have F, F, A flat, C, and then just simply move the C to D flat. That's your Neapolitan. So don't think too hard about, it's a D flat chord, blah, blah, blah. It's really, and I'll tell you this secret before I let you go, it actually evolved historically from the F minor, from the minor 4, not from any concept of it being a flat 2 chord. I mean, of course, these dudes back in the day, they knew it was a flat 2 chord, but that wasn't the way that it was thought of originally. It was really, guys were going to that minor 4, aka the F minor in this case, and then they would just flirt with that upper neighbor. It was a melodic thing. It wasn't really a chordal thing at first. They weren't sitting there like thinking, okay, C minor, and then I want to go to a D flat chord. It wasn't like that the way a jazz musician would think today, or a pop musician. It was a linear melodic thing. So they were already on the F minor, and they just thought, well, it's the Renaissance, we're experimenting. Why don't we just flirt with that D flat for a hot second, and then go back down and resolve it. And then, like I said, like over the centuries, that sound, which originally was just a little flirtation, was frozen and taken out. And people were like, hold on a second, we want to actually use that as its own thing. And then it, was treated as its own chord as such. In fact, there's actually one, Beethoven does this really cool move. How does it go? I can't explain it right now, but he starts to use the Neapolitan chord, and instead of resolving it in the way that I described in this video, he uses it and takes it in a completely different direction. So I will leave you now. I hope that you have enjoyed this video and that you'll head to the piano and check out some Neapolitan chords. And be listening, especially in classical music and Baroque music, be listening for when that very dark sound might come up. And, if you're interested, maybe look at the score of whatever that is and try to see if it matches what you've learned about Neapolitan chords. Okay, happy practicing, and I'll see you all next time.